So, with CM Punk debuting last night on Rampage, the first dance for All Elite Wrestling, and officially signing with the company, the question now is, how does WWE counteract that? Because now the ball is in WWE's court. The ball is on WWE's side of the field. WWE is now up to bat. So how do they counteract the Grand Slam, the multiple touchdowns, the multiple slam dunks, if you will, scored by AEW with the signing of Punk in his official debut last night? How do they counteract that with their big time event of the summer, SummerSlam? How do they counteract that? And there are multiple opportunities for them to try to find a way to counteract that. I mean, this is literally their turn at the chessboard, to where, or the checkerboard, or whatever you want to call it, to where they could try to checkmate and king me AEW, just like AEW has checkmated and king me'd them. So the question is, how would WWE do this? Because if they don't, then it shows that they still look at AEW as an insignificant company, and that to them it doesn't bother them, whatsoever that CM Punk is now with that company. But here's the thing, and I know Triple H, Paul Levesque knows this better than anybody. I know Shane McMahon knows this better than anybody. Stephanie McMahon knows this better than anybody. Even whether they want to admit it to Vince himself, that Kevin Dunn, Bruce Pritchard, and John Laurinaitis, they know it themselves as well, and including even Nick Khan. He knows it himself, that Punk going to AEW is a big deal, and it does solidify them as a major player that WWE needs to take seriously, and they need to keep an eye out for in the coming months, if not years. So if they don't do something tonight at SummerSlam to counteract CM Punk's debut last night, then it shows that they don't see AEW on that level yet, even though it basically happened right in front of their face and in front of the faces of millions, if not billions of people last night, that showed that they are indeed on that level. So the question is, how do they counteract that? What moves do they make? Some have said that the only way they could counteract that is either they have John Cena beat Roman Reigns for the title and win number 17. Now, here's what's interesting, though. Last night on SmackDown, Roman Reigns raised the stakes. He told John Cena, hey, if I can't beat you and keep this Universal title, if I don't leave Allegiant Stadium with that title, maybe I'll leave WWE. Now, we know him being a heel, even if he does lose, he's not going to probably live up to his word. He probably won't leave WWE. He'll probably set up a rematch for 2 weeks later at Payback, which I guess is the next pay-per-view. So we could basically assume that whether or not, we can assume basically whether or not, WWE may or may not go with, John Cena winning number 17, or just have Roman Reigns beat him. The other thing that they could do to kind of counteract the CM Punk momentum that AEW has now because of his debut is the return of one of the superstars that's kind of basically almost on equal terms, if not legitimately on equal terms of popularity, and being viewed as a outspoken, rebellious superstar, and that would be the man, Becky Lynch. Becky Lynch shows up. Either it's after, during, or even before either one of the women's championship matches. That's a big deal. If she shows up afterwards, when it comes to the SmackDown, women's title match, and let's say Bianca retains or Sasha wins, and she shows up basically declaring, hey, I'm next in line, that's a big deal. That's going to get people talking, because you potentially have two mega women's, world championship matchups, right in front of you, for 2 weeks later. Basically 2 weeks later, or down the line, between Becky Lynch and Sasha, or Becky Lynch and Bianca, if not all three of them in a triple threat of their own. The same could be said if she shows up at the end of the Raw Women's Championship match and confronts either Nikki Ash, either confronts, Charlotte Flair, or potentially confronts Rhea Ripley. And we've seen Rhea and her actually compete on NXT at one point, and they had a good match. And I think they've competed somewhat on the main roster too, when NXT was playing part of that whole who's the better brand situation a couple of years ago, and they have good chemistry. So to have Becky show up at the end of that and either confront Rhea or Charlotte or Nikki and saying, "Hey, I'm next in line," that's going to get people talking either way, depending on the brand. So her showing up, afterwards, maybe even before or during, to make her intentions clear that, hey, I'm next in line, that will get people talking, because she is basically WWE's female equivalent to a CM Punk on screen, because basically she's very outspoken, she's rebellious, and she basically lives by the moniker of, hey, or, on screen lives by the moniker, I should say, of, hey, I'm the man. I can do anything a man does, if not better. So that could be one thing that happens. The other thing that could get people talking is a Big E cash-in. Whether it's a cash-in on Roman Reigns after his match with Cena, or it's a cash-in on Bobby Lashley or even Goldberg after their match. That'll get people talking. That might, get people to, kind of put the CM Punk debut back, on the back burner and talk about that, focus on that. Goldberg winning the title from Bobby Lashley would definitely get people talking, because even though it wouldn't be a very positive talk, it'd get them talking and be like, oh, here we go again kind of deal. Or if they play it the way they're trying to play it, and you have Baron Corbin sneak his signature onto the contract and then cash in and become champion and basically, make history by being the first ever non-Money in the Bank winner to cash in the briefcase and become champion, because legally his name is on the contract. Well, that will get people talking. That would definitely get people talking, because one, he didn't win the briefcase, he didn't win the contract, he didn't earn the right or win the right. Big E did, but yet because his name's on the contract, he was able to legally, basically cash in and become champion, and that would get people talking. Believe it or not, Baron Corbin, if they do what I think they might try to do, or attempt to do, or teasing they might do with Baron Corbin, tomorrow night, that would definitely get people talking, especially if they go through with it. So there's many options, including even a Brock Lesnar appearance, if that was to happen, to confront either Roman or maybe Lashley. Or maybe even an early, unexpected teased Rock appearance, after the Roman match. Again, many possibilities are on the table for WWE to try to counteract the CM Punk debut on Rampage last night, for AEW, and some of them are very legitimate, legitimate and happening, I should say. But again, does WWE, take advantage of now having the ball in their court, the ball on their side, being up to bat, having their turn at the chessboard to try to checkmate somebody? Do they take advantage, by strategically, maneuvering around and basically, beating AEW, at their own game? Or do they not take what AEW did last night at the United Center with CM Punk's debut and just, still look at them as no threat at all, even though, like I said earlier, in front of billions of people's eyes, CM Punk arriving the way he did, in front of a packed house at the United Center, where basically, you look at it on screen, they were literally hanging off the rafters in that building. Literally. It felt like they just packed them in like a freaking sardine, to where people were hanging out a little bit. They were just all squished together. All because of Punk. So the question now, is, so the question now for WWE is, do they take what they saw along with billions of others seriously and try to counteract that, or do they not, and still look at them as no threat? Because if they do, that's going to basically come back to bite them, and they don't want that. Especially if AEW gets ready to set the stages for potential matchups that people have been waiting to see for a while. So we'll see what they do. We'll see what they do. Again, like I said, the ball, is on the, the ball is in WWE's hand right now. It's on their side of the court. It's on their side of the field. They're up to bat. It's their turn. It's their turn at trying to, make a move on the chessboard. It's their turn. It's their opportunity. Do they take it, or do they, screw it? Do they blow it off and say, "Hey, CM Punk being in AEW after seven years being away from the business, hey, that's no big deal." Do they do that? Or does somebody step up and say, "Hey, we need to counteract that, and we need to do it in a big way"? So, again, the ball's in the court. Their turn. It's their turn at the It's their turn at the chessboard. It's their. The ball's on the side of their field. They're up to bat. Do they strike out? Do they grand slam? Do they score a multitude of touchdowns to come back and win? Do they score multiples of 2-point to 3-pointers from downtown to come back and win? What do they do? It's up to them. And all I can say is, WWE, I wish you all the best of luck, as crazy as that sounds, because you're going to need it. Because if you don't counteract what happened last night on Rampage, then guess what? The future looks very, very dim for you. Let's see what you do. Ball's in your court, guys. You're up to bat. Let's see what you do. Let's see if you score, or you strike out, or airball it. Ball's in your court, guys. But let me know what you all think down below. Comment in the live chat during the premiere. Like the video, and I'm out.